Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. Rachel Carrington starts her story in her book, The Early Years, a memoir, with a brief view of preteen life as firstborn of 11 children in a small town in southern Kentucky. Rachel was a bit of a rebel, often questioning her parents about rules that, in her opinion, didn't make a lot of sense. This characteristic flaw feature in her demeanor was even more evident in her later teen years. As an example, it took only an ordinary paper wad for her to make a drastic change in a crucial life choice. The story of Rachel's life and that of her chosen mate starts with hardships, uncertainties, and struggles, progressing into accomplishments realized as the young couple moves forward towards set goals, bolstered by their love for each other and their trust in God. Rachel tells of the bringing together of two families as one and the joy of the process. The Carrington story can be an inspirational guide to others who are striving for a better life, to set goals and to go for them. Asking God to lead you and working faithfully toward what you hope to accomplish will make your task easier. A love story that endures through the ages, The Early Years, a memoir, awarded a 5-star review by the Pacific Book Review, and author Rachel G. Carrington, our guest on This Week in America. Rachel, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
It's great to be here.
What a wonderful job you've done with this book. It's a very motivational story, an inspirational story. A lot of people are enjoying reading about your life and taking lessons that they can implement in theirs. Let's go back to the basics. What was the inspiration in writing this book, The Early Years?
My husband always encouraged me to write our story so that we could share it with our family, and that was my sole intent at the beginning. But I did have it published by a company who really wanted to make it broader than that. And I'm thankful that it started out that way, because I think as well as being encouraging to my family, it was inspirational to people who wanted something in life to strive for it, go for it, and make it happen.
Well, so many go through exactly what you did, don't they? They go through the ups and the downs. Yes,
so we had quite a few downs, but we had enough ups to balance it out. And I think, our strong cooperation between us and our love for each other and just being led by God had a lot to do with our story being the story it is. And it's a story of my life. It's not a story I'd want changed in any way, because I had a happy life.
Well, it's who you are. Our guest is Rachel G. Carrington. Carrington is Carrington. Her website is rachelgcarrington.co. You can link on by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Book available at Amazon as well, the usual places. And I understand this was what sort of an oral story before. You told parts at family gatherings, and friends and family there encourage you to put the story in writing.
That's kind of the way it got started. And then I got a lot of encouragement, especially from my family, my sisters, brothers. I have 8 sisters and 2 brothers, so it got around, and they just encouraged me to put it in print. They wanted me to do that and then pass the books out. Type it up for them and pass it out. And I said, that would take a book, and that gave them an idea. Well, why don't you write a book? So I got that from all of them, and then I had some good friends, some people I worked with for one thing, and then just people that I knew that encouraged me to write. They saw some of my little short stories that I had written for my family, and they just wanted me to put it out there so that they could read it too.
Yes, and it's a story well written. You do an excellent job in writing this. And when you think back to the early years, a few decades ago, how difficult was that to go back and remember, to be able to write the book? Was that a challenge to go back and to remember some of these
It was a challenge,
incidents?
And especially because I'd always kept journals, starting with my diaries as a teenager. and I'd kept the journals because it was something I would get out occasionally and read, to kind of go over and enjoy thinking about my life. But in 1989, a major flood in Ohio wiped my journals out. My house was flooded. The water stayed in my basement for 3 days, and that's where my journals were stored. And I thought when I started to write, I'd never be able to without the journals. But it was amazing. I kept 2 screens going on my computer, one with the manuscript and the other with just notes as I would think of something. And I was so amazed at how one memory would kick another one in, and I would have a long list. Then I'd go back later and put them in where they belonged in the book. So it was not as hard as you might think. I was surprised myself, though, that I could remember that much.
It's amazing that one incident you would remember would lead to another. It's almost like this is a movie flashing in your mind, wasn't it? As you were sitting there putting it together. The book is The Early Years, a Memoir, Book 1. It's by Rachel G. Carrington, our guest on the program. That's a pen name. Why did you decide to use a pen name in writing The Early Years?
Well, a key part of my story involved people that it might not be very complimentary to, and I didn't want to embarrass them. But those people are no longer living, and so I have connected my real name with my pen name because, well, I just wanted. Well, a lot of people guessed it anyway because of my sisters and all that. It's just pretty obvious.
All the family members, but the name, if you're looking for the book, is Rachel G. Carrington. Our website is rachelgcarrington.co, not com.co. Book available at Amazon, the usual places. Go to our website. You can link on directly to get information on Rachel and be able to order the book there as well. You lived in Ohio when you published this book. Did you write the book while living there?
I lived in Ohio, but I wasn't in Ohio physically when I wrote the book, most of the book. It was during my time that I spent in the winter in Hawaii for 6 months. When I started the book, I did nothing but write the book and rewrite till I got it just the way I wanted it. And then when I got back to Ohio is when I had it published.
And living now...
But most of it was written.
Yeah, in Hawaii, and you're living in Florida now, so you like the sunshine. I take it you like the warmer climate as opposed to Ohio.
The trip to Hawaii was just too long, and if something happened that I'd have to go home in a hurry or the kids would have to come to me, it would take too long. So I decided that I better go for something a little closer to, well, on the mainland where the kids could get to me or whatever. And I have not been sorry at all that I moved to Florida. I love it here. It's not like Hawaii. It gets hotter than it does in Hawaii. And it gets colder in the winter, of course. But still, it's a good substitution.
Yes, it is. And it's a lot closer. You don't have to fly over a body of water for 6 hours to get there. So there's some advantages to being in Florida.
That is a disadvantage for sure.
I want to go back just for a second and talk about what prompted you to write this book. And from a family standpoint, they wanted your stories. They wanted sort of a journal of what you went through. But it's more than that, isn't it? It's sort of a lifeline to people going through the ups and downs of life out there. And the book can motivate people. Was that part of the reason that prompted you to write?
It actually wasn't my reasons to start with, but that was what readers seemed to pick up on right away. I did it for mostly for the family to install our love for doing what we could to get ahead.
Yes.
And that it worked for the general audience the same way, apparently, because I got that same thing from our readers. Such an inspirational book from my several of my professional reviews mentioned the inspirational quality of the book.
Yeah, when you read the reviews, the book it's an interesting story for people to read. And it's also one that motivates so many people. They see an average family that goes through ups and downs, that has a love for each other, a love for family, faith, a deep faith that gets you through all of these issues. And the book is so meaningful. You know, it's interesting now. The book can be available in a number of formats. A lot of people like the ebooks. I like to pick up a book and thumb through the pages and enjoy it that way. But ebook, is the book available in ebook?
It is available in ebook. It's available also in audio, in the audio book. So it's available in all different formats, really.
So basically, whatever you're looking for, including audiobook and ebook, you'll find the early years available in those formats. I mentioned the book available. Of course, you can order by going to your website, rachelgcarrington.co, available at Amazon. It's at basically every place, isn't it? And you're in some brick and mortar stores, the old-fashioned way, to actually walk in a bookstore and smell all the books, look through the books. Yes.
In fact, I don't know really in what book and mortar stores it's in, but I have people who review it who say they picked it up at their local bookstore. So I know that it is, and at libraries too.
So the book is easily available. The title is The Early Years, a Memoir, Book 1 by Rachel G. Carrington. Our guest on the program, rachelgcarrington.co is the website. As people read through this and the fact that it's your story, it goes back a number of years in your life, is it a true story, not fiction? Is there some fiction spread in there? How would you categorize it?
There is no fiction, but it's written to be enjoyable. It's interpreted a little differently. I mean, it's written to be enjoyable. But everything is true in it. But it may be not stated exactly like it happened, but true enough that it doesn't go away from the reason.
It's an amazing love story. Married for 62 years. Talk about that just a few minutes as we have left in the program here. Going through that, because in a marriage, as I keep saying, ups and downs, I mean, life is like that. And each little down you went through seemed to make the highs even better, didn't it?
It did. My husband was so tolerant, though. I'm a redhead. Sometimes I lose my temper. And I was a redhead, no longer. But anyway, he would say to me when I'd rant, he'd say, "Are you finished?" And that would start me over again. He was just such a calm person. He didn't get rattled over much, and he was a dreamer. And what I mean by that, he would dream up things that he could make. And if I needed a part, like once I said I needed a lower shelf for my keyboard in my desk, I didn't have one, and he said, "Well, what do you need?" I said, need something that I can push out of the way and pull it out when I need it." And he left the house and was gone about an hour. He came back with a nice little tray for my I mean, just things like that. He could build anything. And we had later in life, we had professional water ski shows that started with just our family. We had 7 children, and that's what we did on vacation. We'd go to Lake Cumberland in Kentucky.
Oh, certainly, yes.
Different lakes, different big lakes, and spend our vacation camping. And people at that time, Lake Cumberland was really building a lot of new fishing supply stores were going in along the lake, sold gas to the boats and things like that. And we had a man come to our dock one day and said, "Are you the people that are skiing, that are doing these tricks on water skis?" And we said, "Well, we're on vacation. This is our family. well, would you come and do a show for us? Because we'd like to advertise our place. We're going to open next week, and we'd like to have a show. So we did a show for them, and then we got all kinds of people coming to us wanting us to put on a show for them. So we contacted other families that we saw on the lake that were good skiers that my husband could train. And we ended up with 40 people. We put on shows for 7 years, Amazing. Professional shows. We traveled to different lakes and rivers, but mostly lakes, and put on the show. And
what an
my
exciting
family
life.
were the key part of it, but
Yes.
we had a lot of helpers.
That's amazing. It goes from just something, a recreational activity, to all of a sudden people are paying you to put on this show, and you've got a full production that you're working on. The book is The Early Years, a Memoir by Rachel G. Carrington. One review says, a touching account of a life well lived. And talking to you here for during the course of the program, I sense this really was and is a life well lived. I think that pretty well sums it up, doesn't it?
I wouldn't want a thing changed about my life. Really, I feel that it was a life well lived, and my family are products of that kind of life. They're all good people. They all have a good job. They've all had good jobs. Most of them are retired now. My daughter lives here in Ocala, down the street from me. The rest of them still live in Ohio and Kentucky. But we get to see each other often. I go to Ohio once a year to visit. And it's just, we still are enjoying our life, all of us.
Well, and it makes it, you've got I-95, which goes in both directions. So you're able to go see them. They're able to come down and see you. I mean, it's just...
Actually, here it's I-75.
I-75. I-95 is when we came down. As soon as I said that, I'm thinking, that's not right. I-75 takes you all the way up into Kentucky, right by Lake Cumberland, and then up into Ohio. It's a quick way to get back and forth. I mentioned book one. I don't do that to put any pressure on you, but people have talked about, I hope she writes more. Are you working on book two, a follow-up?
I've got a sequel. And it's kind of like my first book. When I first wrote it, it was more of a documentary, and that's what I was getting at a while ago when you asked me about was the story true. What I'm doing now, I've got about 2/3 of it written, but I'm not so young anymore, and I've got macular degeneration, which is causing me some problems of being able to work long with my eyes. So I am going to go back. I've read it again. It's a documentary, but I'm going to go back and do the same thing that I did with this story, make it a story that is interesting, but still stick to the truth. That's what I was trying to get at a while ago. It's true, but it's a story that makes it more interesting than just the facts.
This book is this book is so well done. I will look forward to the sequel, and it sounds like that's coming along. So hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about that. This book is The Early Years, a Memoir by Rachel Carrington, Carrington. Her website is rachelgcarrington.co. Rachel, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Hopefully we can do this again. I'm glad you're enjoying the central part of Florida, all the sunshine over there. Thank you for spending some time with us on the program.
Well, I've really enjoyed it, Rick. I'm always a little scared at the beginning of an interview, but you've put me at ease immediately, so no problem.
Well, thank you. You did an excellent job, and it was a pleasure having you on and talking about your story. And there's so much there, and more there, and you'll find it in Rachel's book, The Early Years, a Memoir, available basically wherever books are sold. Their website is rachelgcarrington.co. All the information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back on today's program after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, associate producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, segment producer. Ben Watson, webmaster. Otto Bechet, director of engineering and TV production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, executive producer of This Week in America.